available to you. You can begin by opening the folder. If you see here, there's one that says Ice Age Project, then there's another folder in it that says Ice Age Project. Inside of that, there's a .ptx. If you open that Pro Tools session, then it'll basically bring you here. This is where what your session would look like. It's empty right now. We're going to load it. Yes?
Can I get
On the MTL?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not. Oh yeah, MTL.ck. You know what? Hit all.
Server.
Yeah. Do you have Flash drive? We can just flip it over. So for those of you who just joined us, log into the MTL server and pull over the project that says ICU. In worst case, we move you to a different station. Yeah, this might work. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, what I would like for you to do is once you're in the session, go ahead and navigate to Setup, Playback Engine. Chad, I'll just take a second to get this pulled over for you. Oh, it's rolling. Sorry, it's just going to take a moment. Okay, real quick, in your notes, we're going to just put some simple steps down. This is activating the video engine. Okay, so Pro Tools can handle video, and a lot of times we do a lot of video sync in Pro Tools. To give you a background on this, Pro Tools was owned by a company called DigiDesign, and probably 7 or so years ago, they were acquired by a company called Avid. Well, Avid is actually Avid is the name of a video editing software. So Avid is like a high-end video editor, steps above Premiere, Final Cut. And before, Pro Tools had the ability to do video, or allow you to bring video in. But when Avid took them over, they enhanced their video capabilities. So having video in the session is one of the huge benefits of Pro Tools compared to some other DAWs. But you can still use video in a lot of upper-end DAWs, such as Logic and Nuendo and things like that. But we have to actually manually activate the audio engine in order to use it. So when you go to Setup Playback Engine, obviously you're looking for your normal Playback Engine information. But the big thing you're looking for here is the Video Engine Enable. Now in your sessions, hopefully it stayed enabled because I set it up that way in the session that you opened. But in your steps, just write in enabling video engine. Really, it's 2 steps. Step 1, go to setup playback engine. Step 2, enable video engine, and all you do is check the box, and then hit OK. So step 1, go to setup playback engine. Step 2, enable video engine. All right, once you've done that, and I would, real quick, since you've written those steps down, open the playback engine just to confirm that your video engine is active. So for those of you who just joined us, you can go to the FEL server under my name and copy the project that says Ice Age, and then open up the PTX that's inside that folder. So there's a Pro Tools session inside the Ice Age folder. Make sure you copy it to your folder, because you're going to be, obviously you guys are going to be out next week for spring break. But when you return, we're going to continue to work on this project, unless we just Zoom today. But I think we'll need an extra day. Okay, what I'm going to hand out to you while I get this to Chad, I'm going to hand this out real quick. Oh, go, buddy, go. These. What you're receiving is a spotting note template. And what we need to do is we need to set up, we're going to set up and import the video, we're going to import the audio, and we're going to do a quick, what we call spotting sessions. And what we have to do to make this work, I don't know why my audio keeps snapping. What we have to do is we actually have to go through the, or as part of what we're going to do today for our project, we're going to go through video and we're going to make some spotting notes. And the spotting notes are going to be our guide to where things should fall inside the video. So normally, how this works is when you're setting up sound effects for video, video is what they call lock the picture, and essentially once the video lock is done, that means that they're not planning on editing any scenes anymore. And when at that time, a lot of times they move to final spotting sessions, and they already had done. Typically, they do spotting sessions throughout the process, but when they do final spotting sessions, what they'll do is they'll map out exact time code moments that they want sound effects to be placed, music cues to be placed, and dialogue to be placed. Okay, so the notes that you see that you're going to do today are basically outlining where in the time code, essentially the time code being like where in the actual time frame. So we're not using bars and beats for this. Would certain things fall within the video? The great part about this is Pro Tools was designed with a spot mode, which we talked about many weeks ago, but we didn't really use. But it was designed with spot mode that allows you to then translate the spotting cue information and actually drag and drop and import files. So the beauty of that is it allows you to take your spotting note information and then use it very quickly to just drop in all of your sound effects. Now, the project that you have today is very slim in terms of sound. It's a short sequence. There's not a whole lot going on, so it's somewhat slim in terms of sound effects. But in most projects, the sound effects to do sound effects and set up what is written in on the spotting cue sheet in about a minute's time could take several days. Just depending on what is actually taking place inside of the cue. Now, the way that the most film studios have it set up, and if you got an audio missing, dialogue, you can just hit skip. The way most film production studios are set up or designed is the team has a sound effects engineer, and they have a dialogue engineer, and then they have the remix engineer, and then essentially they have a post-production supervisor who supervises the team. But where do the sound effects come from? Sound effects are typically generated by a sound designer. Okay, and so someone's actually in charge of creating sounds, developing new sounds, developing sounds that work for a specific scene. So when we actually write spotting notes, the whole team receives them, and the sound designers quickly go to work to develop specific sounds that they want for these particular cues. So, like if we're working with actual content that has like a very specific, let's say it's a movie set in space, sound designers, obviously are part of the visionary process. Going, all right, well, we want to make some sounds that make it make sense for atmospherically for us to be in space, but we want them to be unique to the film. We don't necessarily want them to be Star Wars, right? So we want our space sounds have a unique identity, and so they spend a lot of time developing those particular sounds. Well, typically when you go to spotting and you're dropping in sound effects, by the time that you're actually manually dropping in sound effects that we were going to do today, there is already a catalog of thousands of sounds that were already either one, licensed from another company, or particularly created and developed for the film. So typically you're already using a massive library. In that massive library, the spotting notes, like the sound designers themselves, when they see the spotting cue sheets, they'll go, all right, well, we made, sound number 10054 specifically for this cue scene point. And they would notate that after the cue sheets come through, they would notate that in the final, for whoever's dropping in sound effects. So they actually, make sounds for the specific scenes, and then they hand that off to the sound effects engineer who then places those in the film. So it's very, if you guys ever worked on an assembly line, or if you ever worked as a cook, it's very much, it's literally like that, you know what I mean? Like, so there's not necessarily one person who's in charge of representing the whole entire team that's actually making sounds and syncing sounds and then writing music and then syncing music and then doing all that stuff all at once. So everybody has a segmented frame. For today, we're literally going to be taking sound effects out of short lists. So again, it's a very short list because it's a cumbersome job just to have to manage the metadata that goes with sound effects after we have thousands of them in the catalog. So you guys have a very short list in your sound effects folder. We're going to be figuring out where those sound effects would best fit, and then we're going to place them. So there is, I will say this, in this kind of format, some sound effects end up being used twice or several times, or recut or edited in certain ways to make the sound effects fly. But in a real production, there's a massive palette of sound effects to choose from. But it's also because there's literally a team of people that are designing them and creating them. And anytime they're at a point where they're like, we don't know what to do here, we need a particular sound, what do? They just order it, and someone makes it, and then they put it in. So it's a lot easier than what you'll see us navigating through these. And so, like, when we get done with sync, since these aren't the exact sounds that were plucked from the film, when we're done with sync, yours will still look a little static. It won't be as fluid as the original will be, but it's particularly because they have the opportunity to actually order and generate and have someone specifically set aside for designing, and most times it's multiple people. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about what we have to do with this in this session. So we have to set up some session parameters that are going to work for us. The first one is in your notes. I want you to write. I had you open up a session that already existed, but in your notes, I want you to write the following information down. Working with video. You can just write as a header. Working with video. Working with video. We need a couple things. Working with video. Right underneath that, you can write sample rate requirement. I don't know if you guys remember what the sample rate requirement was. Anybody?
For video, it's 48 something.
Yeah, it's 48. It's 48 kilohertz.
Oh.
Yep, right on it. So you can write in there, sample rate requirement, 48K. You can also use 96, which is the HD version, the duplicate version. So the higher end, just a doubling of 48. So 48K is a minimum requirement in order to sync to video. The reason why is because in 44.1 there was a mismatch in the frame rate based upon the frame rate that's used for film. A typical frame rate for film is 23.9. It's like 23.97 frames per second. They always call it just 24, so you can see the feet and frames rate up there just says 24. What happens is in conversion, they actually lose. They have a couple of what they call drop frames that are lost in conversion. Problem with it is that if we were to sync it at 44.1, the audio during the conversion process tends to have negative artifacts. So we always use it at 48 to ensure that we don't have sample rate issues because of that. Because if you can imagine, if I said, hey, we started with 24 and then we had drop frames that went to 23.97, and we did it at 44.1, if we lose anything in time, what do we lose? Right? Because sample rate's a time-based thing. If we lose anything in time, like let's say when we did our conversion, 1 second lost a small percentage of its actual 1 second, what does that mean for the sample rate? Right? If samples are sampled per second, what does that mean? It means that if I start at 44.1, right? If I start at 44.1 and I lose less than a second, like let's say I go to 75% of the second, what happens to the sample rate? I lose samples. What was the requirement for sample rate? What was the sample theorem? What was it?
48.
What? Okay. In the sample theorem, essentially, it said the base level that I can use in order to make my audio when it converts to digital sound good is 44.1K. So if I start at 44.1K and have a drop frame, I actually lose my sample, my required sample rate, which is why we go to 48. 48 actually matches the frame rate when it's divided. When they did the math, 48 matches the frame rate much better. So your requirement for sample rate is 48. Your requirement for bit depth is 24. So you can just put bit depth 24 bits. And then, and I don't think, let's see. Yeah, and then where it says timecode rate, this is one thing you're going to need to do. I would write select command 2. All right, so select command, or press command 2. We're going to have to modify the timecode rate because the timecode rate doesn't match the feet frame rate, and it should. So we're going to have the timecode rate. So command 2 opens up your session setup window. If you go to command 2, you're going to move your timecode rate to 23.976 feet per second. Because that's the timecode that we're going to use. That's the one you have set up here anyway. So you're going to switch it over to 23.976. Here's what happens. Most people don't really know this, but video for film uses 23.9. Video for TV, a lot of times uses 30. And then video for YouTube and all that almost always uses 30, but they could actually also use 60. A lot of like handheld cameras use 60 feet per second, or frames per second. So there is a difference between cinematic and then made for TV formats, and then your basic what you may use, or even on your iPhone. Which is why it's such a big deal, like if you look at like all the new iPhone releases, they're always boasting, oh, the frame rate's different, or they improved frame rate capabilities. It's kind of interesting because I think it was Avatar was one of the first films that they did a multiple of the frame rate. And then when they released, I think it was the last, I think the last Hobbit of the Hobbit series and the first of the Star Wars Rogue One were both breakthroughs in frame rate development. So I think the Hobbit series used 60 frames per second, and I'm pretty sure it was Rogue One that they did for the first time for a cinematic film they used 120, which is in reality all that is resolution. It's just that what most people don't know is why classic films look classic is because they actually have a lower frame rate, and it makes their resolution choppy enough where there's averages in the video that don't make it look so smooth. And when they went to HD, everybody was like, oh, it looks horrible because it feels like I'm in the room with people, but it also feels like I'm in the room with people, which makes it just not feel like movie magic anymore. So they go back and drop filters over top of it in order to make it feel like it's old school again. So, anyway, all that to say, we're going to use a 23.9. They'll improve these capabilities as we go. In your next steps that I want you to write down, importing video. All we have to do to import video is really simple. So if you're in your next steps, on your header, import video. To import video. So import video. All we're going to do is go to File, Import Video. The only catch here is, so we're going to go step 1, File, Import Video. The only catch here is we just draw a quick asterisk, like a little, asterisk in there, like a side note. Not all video is supported by Pro Tools. Okay, so the one catch, I run into this every now and then. So like if you decided you want to make a, if you wanted to do some sync on your own, you want to bring in some video, or you want to do some sort of video sync in Pro Tools. And I like to do my mixes. When I do final mixes, I prefer to do them in Pro Tools. So like on some of the films that I've worked on, what we did is the editors used Premiere to edit, and then I used Pro Tools and Reason to create compositions. I sent it to them, and then they sent me OMF files back that I can import back in Pro Tools to do final mixes. And then after the final mix was done, I don't prefer to do mix sync to video in Pro Tools. So I do the mix in Pro Tools, I send it back to them, and they do final sync in Premiere. And the reason they do that is because the video engine exporter is way better in Premiere than it is in Pro Tools, but the audio mix engine is better in Pro Tools than it is in Premiere. So that's why we mix in Pro Tools, but yet they do the final sync too. So anyway, with all that in mind, not all video can import into Pro Tools, unfortunately. So the workaround here, if you just write in underneath that, the workaround is converting using QuickTime. So you can convert your video. A lot of times if your video doesn't work, you just convert it using QuickTime, all right? So just FYI, it's an easy fix. A lot of times you just open up QuickTime, and then you tell it to export to the MOV format. You just tell it to be a .mov. The one that I'm actually using today is MP4. So MP4 support finally happened about a year ago. But just so you know, not all video works. Step 2, after you go to File, Import Video, and you choose your video, it will ask you if you would like to import your audio. So step 2, select yes to import your audio, essentially, or select, you'll see this is what it looks like when it comes through. You'll navigate to your video clip. In this instance, we're using this one, the MP4. And it's basically going to say import audio file, and you basically need to check this box. If you don't, you won't get it. Step 3, you need to tell it where you want the video to start, and it should be at session start in most cases. You could put a selection if you needed it. And step 4 is just a simple hit OK. There's one more step that takes place, though. This is what most people get a little confused on, so let me show it to you. In the final step here, it actually asks you where you want to save your audio. So the big thing here is you need to basically tell it that it's okay to save your audio in the audio files folder that belongs to the project. The reason that's a big deal is if we were working on a major movie and we were working in a major movie facility, we wouldn't be saving our audio to the specific project file folder. What we'd be doing instead is we would be resourcing it from a server drive that gives us the whole catalog. Does that make sense? So like we would actually be resourcing or essentially pooling all of our audio files so that they always stay in this kind of media manager server, almost like the MTL that you use, except it's a server that's designed to harbor the audio for the whole team, which means I can be in this room and work on this project, and someone else could be in the next room working on the same project, doing it in the video editor, using some of the same resources. So it's kind of one of those kind of steps. That's why it even asks you. Most people are like, well, of course I want it here, right? But the reason it asks you is because you can use it on so many other levels. All you're going to do is hit open. So in that step 5, select your audio files folder and hit open, and then you're ready to go. It's going to import. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. You'll know you're there because your video and your audio will come through. Just don't forget, if you didn't do the session setup frame rate time code, that you make a modification of that. Yes, sir. Oh, it's command number 2 on the keypad. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why they made that different, but command 2 on the keypad. What's funny is that that hotkey ends up on the keypad, and Apple started selling keyboards that don't have a keypad. So a lot of people can't figure out how to get there, so they just.
That's what got me on the last session too. So it's the keypad.
Yeah, it's that keypad. It's other than the numbers on top. Yeah.
And then what would be now?
You're going to move time codes frame rate to 23.976. And then everything else should be the same. Everything else should be appropriate. Okay, now, once you're in it, I will say this. The kind of annoying part about working with video here that like, if you have a second screen, this works great, but the downside to it is, for me, like one thing I always think about when I'm working with this is, I don't like giving my second screen. If I had a second screen, I'd rather have it be something else than have it see my video. I'd actually prefer if they allowed me to do some sort of like small monitor like you do with video, where like a 7-inch or 8-inch display that I could just sit on the tabletop and have that run my video, because you're not going to watch your video for spotting notes, but once you're ready to spot, most of your stuff is going to happen in the editor, and you need to actually look at the editor. And then when it comes time to mix, you're going to be working on the mix window. So it's kind of good to have those in, and then only when you're really working on fine-tuning all your finals, then you actually need your video blown up. But it's kind of weird. I hate having it be this hovering pain. And what's weird is when you toggle your windows, it kind of jumps back and forth out of being in view. Now there is something you can do about that, but so let me just show you the couple of options that you have here. Well, first of all, with your video, you can move it around by grabbing it up at the top, but you can actually resize it by grabbing it down on the bottom right corner. So on the bottom right corner, if you just grab that bottom right corner, you can resize it and put it in different places. But again, the major issue is that when you're toggling back and forth between stuff, a lot of times you're going to have to like shuffle it out of your way. If you ever lose it, if you happen to close it, if you go to Window, that's what you see here where it says Video. It's also, if you want to write this in your notes, it is Command number 9. So you can toggle it on and off in that kind of format. One other thing we can do, let's just see if we can. We haven't talked about window configurations, and I don't know if today's the best day to do it, but it might be good to do it when we come back. One of the things you can do as far as just manually or like automatically arranging it is you could actually go to Window, Arrange, and you can choose a couple different options. One of those options is Tile. And when it tiles, it allows your mix and your edit window to be in this kind of like split screen mode. You can also tile horizontally, vertically. And tiling vertically could be beneficial until we get a ton of sound effects clips. The reason why vertical works a little better is because the mix window is typically very tall. Now at this time though, you may elect in your mix window to use the minimal instead of having everything up in your mix window, because today we're not going to be mixing, we're only going to be spotting. So in your mix window, you might want to just go down to the mix window view at the bottom of the screen and just switch it to minimal, so we're only seeing the bare minimums from the mix. Once you start bringing things in, all we're going to need to do immediately is just set basic volumes, and then we won't be talking about mixing until we're ready to sync. All right. Now, once you've done that, if you moved into this kind of mode, the other thing you can do that may make this simplified is if you get rid of the window on the left to kind of maximize, you do that by hitting the arrow at the bottom so that it'll go away. And then if you double click on the magnifying glass, it'll resize this whole thing so you see the whole clip in this group here. One other thing to note, that the grid mode changes. Now that we've gone to time code, it's going to use this minutes and seconds for grid, and the grid resolution looks a little different. So let's see if I can get it to show. Notice if you tap on the grid in this area here, the grid now actually shows a couple different things that we didn't see before in time code. The grid will show every second. You can also tell it to show frame by frame in terms of the grid. I prefer to have it in frames, in a single frame. It's a lot to see on the grid, but it also means if you're going to lock, it'll end up locking to a frame instead of just locking to a second, which a second could be in the middle of a frame. The reason that that's so important is nothing changes until a frame changes, and that's where, so like when you're going to be looking for your spotting cues, you're going to be looking for them frame by frame. But instead of finding a frame number, you're actually going to use the minutes and seconds option. Now the other thing we're going to do, is in the nudge value. So underneath the grid, I want you to switch your nudge value to 1 frame as well. Okay. And let's see if we. Okay, if you switch to this key command focus, which is this A to Z, you need to activate this key command focus. I would actually write this in your notes. I don't know. I think we talked about it, but I don't think I specified our use of it. In your notes, write down key focus. Key focus just switches your keyboard to do extra commands without having to hit like hotkeys. Key focus, you can just write key focus. And underneath it, you can just define it by writing, allows your keyboard to use specific keys. So essentially, if you were to run in and jump in on a session and your keys weren't working the way you're used to, a lot of times it's just because the key focus is toggled off. To toggle key focus on, all you have to do is select in the edit window, it's in the top right corner of that thing that says AZ. Okay? So just write that down. Toggle on, select AZ. You might want to draw what that little thing looks like. We're going to toggle that on. You'll know it's on when it's orange. Okay? So we're going to click that on. Now, we're not going to be in spot mode to begin with because being in spot mode is kind of difficult to work with, and we won't want spot mode until we start dragging effects in. All right? So technically right now, it's best to either be in slipper than grid. And right now, it's okay to be in grid. Why? Because we moved it to frame by frame, which means it'll essentially align us always to where things are actually happening. Now, the reason we enabled the key command focus is because I want to teach you how to nudge. And nudging essentially is just moving back and forth in the edit window based upon the nudge value. You should have switched your nudge value by clicking on here to 1 frame. And now nudging with the key focus essentially is period. Oh, hold on. Shoot. Hold on 1 second. Oh, that's why. Jeez. Period and comma. So to move forward, it's period, and to move backward, it's comma. So write this in your notes. You can just write in nudge. Move forward, period. Move backward, comma. And that's frame by frame. And again, the reason we want to do frame by frame, in this instance is because when you're going to look for spotting cue sync points, you're looking specifically for where does it fall in the time code. Now, with your video up, if you try this, you'll see that when you toggle, it actually shows you like each specific movement point. So when you're setting up sync, which way are we going? This way. Oh yeah, this way. Actually, I'll start from the beginning. If you hold these down, they'll actually nudge very quickly. So like if you hold period down, you'll see it run. And you can actually wait until the moment that you need that frame. So like one of our sync points is right here. Bam. Now, we could go into half frames, but it's a lot easier to just stay for now because we only have a select number of pieces of audio we're going to use to stick with single frames. I will say this: we're going to go through. I'm going to have you spot where certain cues need to happen. This is one of them. So obviously, in your time code, you'll just write, 10002.23. And then you can skip the editor section. All you have to write in your notes is you just need some sort of sound effect for the acorn. My suggestion would be something that makes some sort of slam noise. So bam, right? Some sort of acorn down. Okay? And you can free write this however you want, however it helps you. But what we're going to do when we go do the spotting, and this I want to just kind of mention to you, is that even though the exact frame may exist at this location, you'll notice that in some instances, it's better to let the frame be late instead of it being early so that the brain has enough time to see what's going on while the sound effect takes place. So in some, like, I see this all the time where it's like, especially if there's moving action, like let's say someone's like about to punch somebody, sometimes the exact frame where the punch sound needs to actually happen where the punch takes place. But if the camera angle moved, like a lot of times what they do, I don't know if you guys ever watch films and or you know how to throw punches for film. A lot of times what they do is they show all the way up to the moment where someone's about to get hit in the face, right? And then when they get hit in the face, all they do is switch the camera angle to something else that obstructs whether or not they actually did get hit in the face, right? So that hiding move, a lot of times, if you impact where the impact should fall, sometimes the brain doesn't have the ability to calculate it or perceive it correctly, and it feels fake because it didn't happen like naturally at a time where your visuals and your mind calculate where it should fall. So sometimes the exact frame is actually too early. So in some instances, you'll notice that the exact frame when you do the spot, it's like, oh, it just feels a little too preemptive, like it should just wait just a touch. So a lot of that's to taste, but when you write your spotting notes, you're going to set them up on a frame by frame. All right. So in this instance, you'll just write acorn. Now, here's the thing: when you do your spotting notes, you have to do it from the beginning of the sequence because you want all of your time codes to relatively be in time. What I'm going to have you guys do is take your spotting notes with your headphones on and actually watch the clip. We're only going to do the first minute. Okay. So after the first minute's done, we're not doing any more. So we're only going to do the first minute. So your first few things to note are what happens at time code 00000. Okay, so like what's the opening thing that they did originally with the sound effects? Like what are you hearing in that? So like when you do your spotting notes, your first spotting cue on that sheet should start with 0. Okay, so like your first column should say time code 0. And you want to write it in the format that you see there. One other thing we can do is if you hit Command 3, this might help you while you're watching the video. If you want to blow this up for now, you can push stop and play or whatever and blow this up just for the spotting notes setup. So let's say I'm going to blow this up for spotting notes. Oops, it's not all the way up. So I'm going to blow this up for the purpose of doing my spotting notes, okay? And I'm going to hit return to start at the very beginning. Then what you could do is, in your notes, you might as well just write this down. It's Command 3. This is what we call the big counter. So just write in your notes, big counter. Big counter, and you can put Command 3. To open up big counter, you can just hit Command 3. The reason the big counter is good is because it's a floating window that you can drop on top of the video. Does that make sense? So you can open up the big counter. You're just going to slide it right in front of the video so that when you roll, oops. Come on, video engine. What's going on here? Let me reopen my session. I'm not sure why my video engine took a dive. Whoops. What was that? All right, what I want you to do is go ahead and jump into doing your spotting notes. My video engine's having some sort of freak out. But what you could do is you could just roll it, and if you have to roll it back, you can use your nudge values to kick you back, but you might want your big counter out. Command 3 so that you have that big counter up out. invisible. Kind of keep track of where you're at in the session. Again, you're only going to do the first minute, so you're going to just kind of notate like what you hear, like stomps, the acorn, the avalanche, all that kind of stuff. Dylan, are you okay? You're good. Oh, did you activate your key command focus? You did. Oh, you did. Did you go back to it? Oh, it's because if you highlight that, click out of it real quick. Like, see how it's like clicked in there, and then just double click on that, or not double click, click it once. Okay, yeah, now click back out of it. It might have been because you were on it. Yeah, because I think it was expecting you to type some sort of value in there in that window. Everybody else fired off? Okay, so we're doing spotting notes for now, and only for the first minute. All right, so you're just jotting time code, you're jotting your note about what needs to be dropped in.
Oh, my audio sounds distorted.
Oh, huh. Now it shouldn't, so I wonder if there's something. It might be your audio engine. Go back to your. We need to start doing that.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you're in the wrong. Yeah, it's because you're. Here, real quick. Let me slide in. Save it. Save it and close. Oh, you might have hit. Did you hit Command S? That's it. Option. Okay, and then you can. Yeah, and then hit close Pro Tools all the way because the audio engine's in the wrong. Interface is in the wrong. All right, try it now. You can re-open Pro Tools and set that up. It was in, I think, it's supposed to be on ADAT and it was in coax.
Oh,
That's the clock sync, and that's why it would sound distorted because it's getting some sort of digital clipping.